We're frigid weather still. I am Dr. Jeff Evenson. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I have my practice here in northern Minnesota in Finlayson. I practice out of my homestead, but I also practice with telehealth, virtual clients over Zoom or phone call. And but I'm not a medical doctor. I practice holistic. I'm a holistic practitioner, and I don't practice medicine. I don't pretend to practice medicine. I don't treat, diagnose, or prescribe. I leave those terms for the medical community. I help instead simply coach my clients back into health through coaching, mentoring, teaching. That's what doctors are, is teachers. Um, all without drugs or surgery, just through nutrition and some supplementation. And it's a pretty solid program when we get people on it. Been doing this for over 17 years. Playing with a little bit of technology this morning. I got behind the scenes, different views. We'll see how that goes. That may come into play. Had some good feedback on last week's show. I had a special guest, Christine Jennings, special lady to me, and an outstanding practitioner. She's moving. She is also doing quantum nutrition testing and health coaching people, and putting the shift on the nutrition focus. She's a licensed massage therapy for 20 years, and she's shifting emphasis in her practice, which is pretty cool to see. It's pretty cool to watch. Because as you know, massage work, you can only imagine it is hard work, and this is hard work too. I think sometimes we can see more people in a week than what it might physically be possible for a massage therapist to do that. So the idea is to help as many people as we can get their health back, rediscover who they are, remember who they are. If you're joining the show, please say hi in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. And we'll get into it. I thought I would talk about regulation, because I'll get into the script, but it was something that came up. Um, Maybe it's this camera only. I don't think the sound is linked to the cameras as I bounce. Let me know if you can hear, because my mic, the indicators are showing that I am making sound. Okay. Um, in the dialogue. So grab your coffee. Let's dive into it. Um, well, another note here about the homestead. My chickens. I have 13 chickens. And you've all heard me talk about the chickens before. They are finally laying eggs again. So I've been averaging right now about 4 eggs. 3 to 4 eggs a day, kind of thing, and it's just fun to be able to eat the eggs fresh off the homestead. Um, okay, Cassie says I'm back with the audio. Hopefully it is going to stay. I did a whole show. I was in. Oh, this was a couple months ago. 20 minutes in before somebody got my attention to say there was absolutely no sound. So I had to kind of start over. All right. So we're going to talk, boosting. We're going to talk about the boosting. Boosting isn't healing. And what I want to talk about is really the lost art of regulation. Okay. And so I want to challenge something that almost everyone believes about health. Most people think that they need a boost. Okay. Boost their immune system, boost their metabolism, boost testosterone, boost thyroid, boost detox, boost their energy. Okay. We've been trained to believe that if we feel low, we just need to turn the volume up. But what if that's the very thinking keeping people stuck? Let me ask you something. If your car engine is overheating, do you press harder on the gas pedal? If your check engine light comes on, do you pour in more fuel and hope it fixes itself? Of course not. But that's exactly what people are doing with their bodies every single day. They feel exhausted, so they push harder. They feel inflamed, so they stimulate the immune system. They feel foggy, so they stack nootropics. They feel sluggish, so they hammer pre workouts and coffee. And for a little while, it feels like it works until it doesn't. Can you move can you move from stress into calm? Can your blood sugar rise and fall without crashing? Can your immune system activate and then shut off? Okay, thanks, Cassie, for telling me that. Um, I will not use the side cam anymore. Can your thyroid adjust without being forced? Can your nervous system settle without chemicals? That's regulation. And when regulation is lost, everything feels unpredictable. Some days you feel decent, some days you crash, some days your digestion is fine, other days you can't tolerate foods you ate yesterday. Your sleep changes, your mood changes, your energy changes, and you start chasing symptoms. You do a different supplement, a different protocol, you find a different doctor, you take a different lab, you start boosting. But here's the clinical truth most people don't hear. A dysregulated system does not need more stimulation, it needs retraining. Chronic illness is often not a single broken part. It's a body that has forgotten how to respond appropriately. It overreacts, or it underreacts, or it responds at the wrong time. And no amount of random boosting fixes that. This is why so many intelligent, motivated, disciplined people stay stuck. They're trying to fix a regulatory problem with stimulatory tools. So today I want to unpack this, what regulation actually means, how we lose it, why boosting can backfire, and how real restoration happens slowly, structurally, intelligently. Because if you understand regulation, you stop chasing hacks. You start rebuilding physiology. And that's where healing actually begins. So let's get into it. Grab your coffee. All right, so let's talk about what regulation actually means, okay? Let's get something straight here right out of the gate. Health is not about how much power you can produce. It's about how much control you have over that power. So most people confuse intensity with health, okay? They'll say things like, I've got high energy. I push hard. I grind. I don't stop. That's not health. That's output. And output without regulation is just borrowed time. So here's what regulation actually means. Regulation is your body's ability to respond appropriately and then return to baseline. Not stay stuck, not overshoot, not collapse. Appropriate response. That's health. So let's break this down. If a stressor hits your life, like an argument, deadlines, hard workout, your nervous system should activate. Your heart rate increases, your cortisol rises, blood sugar elevates slightly, you get sharp. That's called sympathetic activation. It's part of the autonomic nervous system. It's not bad, it's necessary. But here's where most people break. After the stress is over, they don't come back down. They stay wired. They stay tight. They stay reactive. They stay inflamed. They sleep light. They wake at 2 or 3 in the morning. Their digestion slows down. Their hormones drift. And then they say, I think I need adrenal support. No, you need regulation. Let me give you another example. Blood sugar. You eat a meal, your glucose rises, insulin responds, cells absorb fuel, levels normalize. That's regulation. But when regulation is lost, you spike, you crash, you crave, you snack, you feel irritable, you need caffeine to recover. That's not a carb problem, that's regulatory instability. The same with immune function. A regulated immune system attacks a threat and then shuts off. A dysregulated immune system stays on. Inflammation lingers. Autoimmune patterns emerge. Allergies worsen. Your food sensitivities expand. That's not weakness. That's a system that lost its rhythm. And rhythm is everything. Health is rhythm. Your sleep-wake rhythm. You have stress recovery rhythm. Inflammation resolution rhythm. Catabolic, anabolic rhythm. And when rhythm is lost, symptoms multiply. And here's the part nobody wants to hear. You cannot out-supplement a loss of rhythm. You cannot out-medicate a loss of rhythm. You cannot biohack your way into regulation. You cannot boost your way into balance. Because regulation is not intensity, It's adaptability. And adaptability requires stability. That's why I focus so heavily on foundations: blood sugar stability, digestive efficiency, sleep patterns, stress response, drainage pathways. It's not sexy, it's not flashy, but it's powerful. Because when regulation returns, symptoms calm down on their own. Energy smooths out, digestion becomes predictable, sleep deepens, mood stabilizes, you stop feeling like you're guessing, and you stop living on the edge of a crash. So, as we move into the next segment, I want you asking yourself something honestly. Am I trying to get healthier, or am I just trying to push harder? Because those are not the same thing. Okay. Let's talk about the supplement trap next. Before we get into that, I want to do it a quick aside. I mentioned, let me pause here for a second. What is the autonomic nervous system? I get that question every day. What is the autonomic nervous system? Okay. Because I want to pause and explain that real quick because I don't like throwing out terms without explaining them. When I say autonomic nervous system, I'm talking about the automatic control center of your body. You don't consciously tell your heart to beat. Okay. You don't manually instruct your lungs to breathe at night. You don't micromanage digestion after a meal. It just happens, right? We just know it happens. That's the autonomic nervous system doing its job. It runs in the background. And it has two primary branches, okay? A sympathetic branch, that's your gas pedal. That's the fight or flight. Mobilization, performance mode, go time. Your heart rate increases, your blood pressure rises, your blood sugar elevates, digestion slows. The system is built for short bursts of intensity. Okay. Then there's the other side of this, the parasympathetic. That's your brake pedal. This is your rest, your digest, your repair and recover. Heart rate slows, your digestion improves, hormones regulate, tissues rebuild. Now here's the key. Health is not living in one of these states, on or off. Health is the ability to move between them smoothly. Stress hits, you activate. Stress ends, you recover. Back and forth, back and forth. But when someone lives in chronic stress, like shift work, emotional trauma, financial pressure, overtraining, constant stimulation, the gas pedal gets stuck. And when the gas pedal stays stuck, eventually the system burns out or becomes chaotic. And that's when you see sleep disruption, your digestive instability, anxiety, hormone swings, chronic fatigue. It's not random, it's dysregulation of the autonomic system. And if that system isn't stabilized, you can take every supplement on the shelf, you're still pushing a body that doesn't know how to shift gears. And that's where most people get trapped. Okay. When I am using muscle testing and quantum nutrition testing, I am having a conversation, a dialogue. It's a biofeedback technique that allows me, the practitioner, to have a dialogue with the human body. Okay. I can have a conversation right with the autonomic nervous system because it regulates every aspect of your body. Okay, so it's important to know that I'm working with the ANS, and that's kind of the conduit into how I can understand what your body is doing. Okay, now before I get into the segment, if you're just joining the show, be sure to say hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. It's always fun. And throughout the show, if you have any questions, put them in the comments too, and I'll try to get them answered. Okay. So I like to talk about the supplement trap. Okay, we'll talk about the elephant in the wellness room. All right, the supplement trap. Now, hear me clearly. I use supplements every single day in my practice. Okay, they are tools. That's it. They are tools. But a tool in the wrong hands or used for the wrong purpose becomes part of the problem. And so here's what I see constantly. Someone feels tired, so they assume adrenal fatigue. They grab adrenal stimulants. Someone feels cold or sluggish. They assume thyroid. They grab thyroid boosters. Or someone feels bloated. They assume low stomach acid. They hammer betaine and enzymes. Or someone feels inflamed. They assume immune weakness. They start boosting immunity. So do you notice the pattern here? The pattern is assumption, stimulation, temporary improvement, and then crash. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Stimulation feels like progress, but stimulation is not regulation. So let me explain. If your nervous system is already living in sympathetic overdrive and you add adrenal stimulants, you might feel better for a week, but what you've done is press harder on a system that doesn't know how to slow down. That's not healing, that's borrowing. The same goes with detox. This one is huge. People hear about heavy metals, parasites, glyphosate, mold, so they jump into aggressive detox protocols. Binders, antimicrobials, high dose drainage formulas. But if the liver is sluggish, if the lymph is stagnant, if bowels aren't moving efficiently, you're mobilizing toxins faster than you can eliminate them. And when mobilization exceeds elimination, your symptoms flare. You get the headaches, fatigue, rashes, brain fog, mood swings. Then people say detox is working. Maybe. Or maybe you just overwhelmed a dysregulated system. Let's go deeper. Immune boosting. This phrase, it drives me nuts, okay? If someone has autoimmunity, the last thing they need is more immune activation. They need immune modulation. They need regulation, okay? If someone has chronic inflammation, the goal is not to crank up immune intensity. It's to restore balance between activation and resolution. But boosting cells, regulation requires patience. Hey, good morning, Janae from McGregor. And patience doesn't trend well on social media. Okay, so now I want to be clear about something. Sometimes targeted supplementation is absolutely appropriate, but only after we understand where is the body compensating, where is it underperforming, where is it overreacting, what system is exhausted, what system is dominant. Okay, without that clarity, you're guessing. And guessing in a dysregulated body often amplifies chaos. This is why so many smart people feel stuck. They're doing all the right things, they're disciplined, they research, they invest in quality products, but they're applying stimulatory solutions to regulatory problems. And you cannot stimulate your way into balance. Let that sink in. You cannot stimulate your way into balance. You regulate your way into balance, and regulation requires structure, which is exactly where we're going next, because the real question becomes, how did we lose regulation in the first place? So, see more people jumped on. Be sure to say hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions, pop those in there too. All right. Now, give me a moment here. Back to the front camera. I was testing there. Apparently, I don't have sound when I switch to the side camera. Um, I would love to figure that out. Okay, so and if some of the new people, there we go, couldn't hear you. All right, Janae, thanks. Yeah, the side camera seems to turn off the sound. That's weird. I'll have to figure that out. That's what happens when you try to get fancy or try to bring in, some new dynamics to the technology. Is it doesn't always work. All right. So let's talk about how regulation gets lost. Okay. Nobody wakes up one day and says, I think I'd like to become chronically dysregulated, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, quietly, layer by layer. So let me paint the picture here. You start with stress. Maybe it's shift work. Maybe it's building a career. Maybe it's raising kids. Maybe it's financial pressure. Maybe it's unresolved emotional trauma. Well, the body adapts. That's what it's designed to do. Cortisol rises, sleep shortens, digestion slows slightly, and recovery decreases. But you push through because you can. And in the short term, that adaptation feels like strength. You grind, you perform, you survive. But adaptation without recovery becomes compensation. And compensation over time becomes dysfunction. So let's take sleep as an example. You lose an hour here, 2 hours there, you wake at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you can't fall back asleep. You just shrug it off. I'm fine. But the nervous system never fully shifts into deep parasympathetic repair. So now digestion suffers, your stomach acid weakens, enzyme production drops, motility slows, food sits longer than it should, you bloat, you feel heavy. Now you start modifying diet aggressively. Cut this out, remove that, add supplements. But the root wasn't food, it was regulation. Now let's layer in some environmental stress, glyphosate exposure, heavy metals, chronic low level infections, repeated antibiotic use. Each one alone may not break you, but when you stack them together, they increase inflammatory load. Inflammation rises. Immune system stays activated longer than it should. And here's where things really start to shift. The body loses timing. Cortisol releases at wrong hours. Insulin spikes unpredictably. Thyroid signaling drifts, sex hormones fluctuate. You begin to feel inconsistent. Some days are decent. Some days are wiped out. Some days are clear. Some days are foggy. And that unpredictability starts to create anxiety because humans crave rhythm. And when rhythm is lost, control feels lost. So, what do most people do? They try to tighten control externally. Stricter diet, more supplements, harder workouts, more research. But the problem was never effort, it was loss of internal adaptability. So, let me say something important here. Symptoms are not the enemy. Symptoms are signals that regulation has drifted. Fatigue is a signal. Bloating is a signal. Mood swings are a signal. Autoimmune flare ups are signals. They're not random punishments, they're feedback. And when we suppress signals without restoring rhythm, the body gets louder. Chronic illness is rarely a sudden breakdown, it's accumulated dysregulation. Years of pushing without restoring, years of compensating without recalibrating. And here's the good news: if regulation can be lost gradually, it can also be rebuilt gradually. but it won't happen by accident. And it won't happen with more stimulation. It requires structure, which is exactly what we're going to talk about next. How do you actually rebuild regulation? Okay. But it reminds me of a client that I talked to this past week. He said he hates the routine. He hates having that structure. He said he believes he doesn't thrive well in that. And I called him on it. I said, the body does require structure. It loves and thrives on routine. Okay. And to give you an example, my routine every day, I get up around 5 o'clock. I drink a protein shake. I go to the gym. I come back from the gym. I shower. I go into the kitchen, make breakfast, sit down and have a cup of coffee every single day. And routine, when you know you're locked in routine, most of us do this. When you're in the bathroom, you're getting ready for the day. Most of us literally will do the same sequence of everything in the bathroom. And I'm talking about hang the towel by the shower, turn the water on, let it warm up, stand there, wait, get in, shower, wash, shampoo. Well, I don't have to shampoo. Get out of the shower, dry yourself, walk over to the sink, get your toothbrush, toothpaste. Everything is laid out almost. You don't. It's a script. You tend to follow it every day. The body loves that kind of routine every day. Okay, go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, do your exercise at the same time. The rhythm, and I believe that when someone says, "Well, I don't like rhythm, I don't like the routine and all that kind of stuff," I like being able to do it whenever I want and popcorn all over the place. And I'm going to just call bullshit on that, because every time you decide, to me that's a smokescreen to use to avoid having to do all of the things your body is looking for to stay healthy, to get back into regulation. Okay, your body wants the boredom. Okay. Fill in the day, of course, with your work schedule and your lives and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying stick to a schedule and a pattern that your body can take safety in and rest. All right. Now, I also talked about cortisol in that segment because I wanted to talk about it here because cortisol gets thrown around constantly in the health world, and people will say, my cortisol is high, my cortisol is low. I have adrenal fatigue. I need to lower cortisol. And most of the time, nobody actually explains what that means. So let's bring some clarity to that. Cortisol is not the villain. Cortisol is a survival hormone. It's produced by your adrenal glands and regulated through something called the HPA axis. That's a hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Okay, it's three glands, three parts of your endocrine system, the communication loop between your brain and your adrenals. Its job is simple: help you adapt to stress. So when you wake up in the morning, cortisol should rise naturally. That rise gives you alertness. It mobilizes glucose. It increases focus. It helps you get moving. That's healthy. When a stressor hits, physical, emotional, or metabolic, cortisol rises again. It increases blood sugar. It shifts blood flow to muscles. It sharpens your awareness. That's not dysfunction, that's design. And the problem isn't cortisol, the problem is rhythm. Cortisol is meant to rise and fall in a predictable daily pattern, higher in the morning and gradually tapering throughout the day. So it's low at night so you can sleep deeply. When regulation is intact, cortisol behaves like a wave, a smooth rise and a smooth decline. But when someone lives in chronic stress, that wave becomes chaotic. It can stay elevated at night, it can spike randomly during the day, it can flatten out completely, it can surge when it shouldn't, That's dysregulation. And here's where the conversation gets distorted. People think the goal is to lower cortisol. Not necessarily. If cortisol is already low and flat, lowering it more would make things worse. If cortisol is high because the body feels unsafe, forcing it down without fixing the stress pattern doesn't solve the root. Cortisol is a responder. It reflects what the nervous system perceives. So if your brain thinks you're in danger, emotionally, metabolically, or environmentally, cortisol rises to help you survive. So instead of asking, how do I kill cortisol? A better question is, why does my body think it's under threat? Because when the threat perception stabilizes, cortisol stabilizes. That is why regulation matters more than suppression. You don't silence the alarm system, you remove the reason it's alarming. Cortisol isn't bad. Chronic mistimed cortisol is a sign that rhythm has been lost. And restoring rhythm restores cortisol. That's the bigger picture. Okay. I talked about the HPA axis when I mentioned it a moment ago. Hypothalamus, it stands for the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal. These are three parts of your stress response communication system. And so think of it like a command chain. First, the hypothalamus. This is small but powerful control center in the brain. It constantly scans your internal and external environment. Blood sugar shifts, emotional stress, inflammation, sleep deprivation, infection, financial pressure. It interprets all of it. If it perceives stress, it sends a signal to the next level. Second, the pituitary gland. This is often called the master gland. It receives instructions from the hypothalamus and releases messenger hormones that tell other glands what to do. In this case, it tells the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. Then third, the adrenal glands. These sit on top of your kidneys. They produce cortisol and other stress hormones to help you adapt. So the chain looks like this. Brain detects stress, signal sent, adrenals respond. Cortisol is released. Now here's the key. This system is not meant to be on constantly. It's meant to activate, then quiet down. Activate, recover, activate, recover. So when someone lives in chronic stress, poor sleep, unstable blood sugar, unresolved trauma, or constant stimulation, the HPA axis never fully powers down. And then over time, communication becomes distorted, and sometimes cortisol stays elevated. Sometimes output becomes blunted. Sometimes timing gets scrambled. And this is where people start saying, my adrenals are shot. But what's really happening is a regulatory breakdown in this communication loop. It's not just the adrenal glands, it's the entire signaling system, the brain, the pituitary, the adrenals. And you don't fix communication breakdown by yelling louder. You restore safety, you restore rhythm, you stabilize inputs. And when the brain perceives safety again, the HPA axis recalibrates and your cortisol normalizes, your energy stabilizes, and sleep improves. And then regulation begins to return. And that's the deeper layer that most people miss. If you want to know more about the endocrine system, I did an episode back. You can find it in the Rumble archives on my channel, Even Sim Holistic, on November 30th, where I talked about the whole endocrine system. And in that episode, we broke down the glands themselves, the thyroid, the adrenals, pancreas, sex hormones, the communication network. Okay. We talked about what they do and how they influence energy, metabolism, mood, inflammation. But today's conversation goes one layer deeper because it's not just about the glands. It's about the regulation between them. A thyroid gland can be structurally fine and still behave poorly if cortisol timing is off. Adrenals can look normal on paper but still be misfiring if the brain is stuck in threat perception. Blood sugar can destabilize hormones even if the gland itself isn't damaged. The endocrine system is not a collection of isolated parts, it's a rhythm network. And when that rhythm when that rhythm gets disrupted, symptoms appear, even if nothing is technically broken. So today isn't repeating that episode, we're advancing it. We're not just talking about the hardware, we're talking about the operating system, and that's regulation. So, how do we rebuild regulation? So, the obvious question becomes, if regulation is lost slowly, how do we rebuild it intentionally? Okay. And here's where most people expect something dramatic: a powerful detox, a breakthrough supplement, a revolutionary hack. But rebuilding regulation is not dramatic. It's disciplined, it's structured, it's foundational. That's what I do with every one of my clients. So let me walk you through how this actually works. Number one, nervous system stabilization. If the nervous system is constantly in sympathetic dominance, nothing downstream stabilizes. You can't digest well, you can't detox efficiently, you can't regulate hormones, you don't sleep deeply. So the first focus is calming the baseline stress response. Not sedating it, not suppressing it, but teaching it safety again. That means consistent sleep timing, reducing overstimulation at night, breathing practices, moderate, not excessive training, stabilizing blood sugar. And when the nervous system starts feeling safe, everything downstream begins to cooperate. Two, the blood sugar stability. This is massive. Unstable blood sugar keeps the body in micro stress all day long. Spike, crash, crave, repeat. Every crash signals danger to the brain. Cortisol rises. Adrenal output increases. Inflammation climbs. So before we talk detox, before we talk parasites, before we talk deep endocrine correction, we stabilize fuel, adequate protein, balanced meals, strategic timing, reducing refined sugar load. It sounds simple, it's powerful because stable blood sugar creates internal rhythm. And this is why I work in basically every client I'm working with them. I study their food journals, and for some, I teach them how to eat again. The third thing is digestive integrity. Okay? If your digestion is compromised, nothing upstream can regulate properly. You can eat clean, you can supplement intelligently, but if absorption is poor, you're building on sand. Okay? So we support stomach acid balance, enzyme function, gut motility, microbial balance, not aggressively, intelligently. Because again, overcorrecting digestion in a stressed system backfires. Regulation, not force. Then we have drainage before detox. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make. I did a whole show on this one too. They mobilize before they eliminate. If the liver, lymph, kidneys, colon are not moving efficiently, detox becomes self sabotage. So before aggressive protocols, we ensure the bowel regularity, hydration, liver support that doesn't overstimulate, gentle lymph movement. And when elimination is functioning, then detox becomes tolerable. And so then there's consistency over intensity. This might be the most important principle out of all of this. Regulation is restored through repetition, not intensity. A steady sleep schedule for weeks, balanced meals daily, structured supplement support, consistent check ins. Over time, the nervous system relearns rhythm. Hormones stabilize, inflammation calms, energy evens out. You stop feeling like you're living on the edge of a cliff. And here's the part that matters. This isn't passive. This is active rehabilitation of physiology. Just like rebuilding strength after an injury, you don't go max weight on day one. You rebuild capacity step by step. That's regulation work. And this is why guessing doesn't work. Because if you push the wrong system at the wrong time, you destabilize the whole pattern again. Which brings us to the final piece. How do you know where to focus first? Let's talk about that. Here's the reality. Everything I just described sounds logical. Stabilize the nervous system, balance blood sugar, support digestion, open drainage, restore rhythm. But here's the challenge. Every body compensates differently. Two people can both be exhausted. One is running on overactive adrenals, the other is underproducing cortisol. Two people can both have bloating. One has low stomach acid, the other has stress-induced motility disruption. Two people can both have autoimmune symptoms. One is immune dominant and inflamed, the other is immune suppressed and reactive. Same symptom, different regulatory breakdown. And this is where guessing becomes expensive, because if you stimulate a system that's already overactive, you push it further into chaos. If you suppress a system that's already underperforming, you slow it even more. Regulation requires precision. You have to know what gland is under the most stress, what system is compensating, what is the body prioritizing for survival right now, where is the energy being diverted, because the body always prioritizes survival over comfort. Symptoms are often a byproduct of that prioritization. When I evaluate someone, I'm not asking, what do we boost? I'm asking, where did the body lose adaptability? That's a completely different lens. Okay? It's not about attacking symptoms. I don't chase symptoms. It's about identifying stress patterns. What's overworking? What's undercommunicating? What's inflamed? What's stagnant? When you understand that hierarchy, now you can apply support strategically. Not randomly, not aggressively, strategically. And when support is aligned with what the body is actually asking for, regulation begins to return. Energy smooths out, sleep deepens, digestion becomes predictable, mood stabilizes. Not because we forced anything, but because the system regained rhythm, and that's the difference between stimulation and restoration. Stimulation creates spikes, restoration creates stability. So if you're listening right now and you feel like I'm doing all the right things, but something still feels off, it's very possible you don't need more effort. You need better direction. You don't need more intensity. You need regulation. And that's where real healing begins. Let me take a minute and let my dog in. I'll be right back. If it was summertime, I would just leave him out there. But it's quite cold this morning, so I'm letting him in when he wants to come in. Okay. All right. So, from regulation to real health. Okay. So, let me speak directly to you for a moment. Okay. If you've been trying to boost your way out of fatigue, if you've been stacking supplements or medications but still feel unpredictable, if your energy swings week to week, if your digestion changes depending on the day, if your sleep feels fragile, that's not a motivation problem. That's not a discipline problem. That's not a willpower problem. That's dysregulation. And dysregulation doesn't fix itself with more intensity. It gets rebuilt with structure. This is why I don't run a try this supplement and see what happens practice. That's not how physiology works. When someone walks into my office, I'm not asking, what do you want to boost? I'm evaluating, where is regulation lost? What system is compensating? What gland is under stress? What's inflamed? What's stagnant? What's exhausted? Because once you understand the hierarchy of stress inside the body, you stop guessing, you stop chasing trends, you stop jumping protocol to protocol, and we start rebuilding from the ground up. That's what phase one is. It's not a supplement program, it's structured physiological rehabilitation. We stabilize blood sugar, we support digestion intelligently, we open drainage pathways, we calm the nervous system, and we remove hidden stressors in the right order. And we do it consistently, not aggressively, not recklessly, intelligently. Over time, the body relearns rhythm. Energy becomes steady, sleep becomes deeper, digestion becomes predictable, mood becomes stable. That's regulation returning. So if you've been stuck in the cycle of boosting and crashing, maybe it's time to stop pushing. Maybe it's time to rebuild. If that resonates with you, the first step is simple. Schedule, I'm going to turn on my banner here. Okay. Schedule a full assessment. Let's stop guessing. Let's stop stimulating blindly. Let's identify where regulation was lost and restore it properly. Because healing isn't about intensity, it's about intelligent structure. And that's what I do. Okay. So here's a quick segue. Let me find. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. Here we go. I'm going to pin this to the top on my. Well, actually, I'll just take the link here. Oh, wrong. That's why I can't do that. Sorry, talking to myself. I thought for sure I posted my. I have a webinar coming up next week, Wednesday. Here we go. Found it. Good grief. Let me pin that up to the top. All right. Well, boy, sometimes Facebook just does not like me. All right. Please, if you are interested, I have doing a webinar on March 4th at 7 p.m. Okay. I'll put the link in the comments. And then I would invite you to come in. It's free. It's a webinar. We're going to talk about holistic health, of course, and the foundations of it a little bit. You'll get a little bit of my backstory, but it's free, 7 o'clock. And it'll sometimes give people, if you know somebody that wants to know more about what I do, we're going to talk about it then on Wednesday night. So please sign up March 4th, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we'll have fun on the webinar. Right, and the link is in the comments. Okay, so healing is rhythm. So let's bring this home, okay? If there's one thing I want you walking away with today, it's this. Health is not intensity. It's rhythm. It's not about how hard you can push. It's about how well you can recover. Okay. It's not about how many supplements you can stack. It's about whether your body knows when to turn systems on and when to turn them off. It's not about boosting and it's not about regulating. Because when regulation is, or it is about regulating. Okay. Because when regulation is lost, life feels unpredictable. Energy becomes inconsistent and sleep becomes fragile. Digestion becomes unreliable, mood becomes reactive, and unpredictability creates fear. You start wondering, what's wrong with me? But most of the time, nothing is broken. The system is just dysregulated. And dysregulation is not a life sentence. It's a sign that rhythm was lost, and rhythm can be rebuilt. But it doesn't get rebuilt through panic. It doesn't get rebuilt overnight. It doesn't get rebuilt through chasing trends. It doesn't get rebuilt through random protocols. It gets rebuilt through structure, through consistency, through intelligent support, through stabilizing the nervous system, through balancing blood sugar, through restoring digestion, through opening drainage, through time. Slow, steady, intentional recalibration. That's what real healing looks like. It's not flashy, it's not viral, but it's powerful. And here's the part I'll leave you with. If you feel like you've been pushing harder and harder just to feel normal, maybe the answer isn't more push. Maybe it's better direction. Maybe it's structure. Maybe it's regulation. You don't need more intensity, you need rhythm. And when rhythm returns, healing follows. So, hopefully you enjoyed what I talked about today. Tune into the show. I made reference to another show from November 30th, 2024 in the Rumble archives on Evenson Holistic channel. And let's have a great week, okay? Let's close with a prayer, all right? Heavenly Father, we come before you with gratitude for the incredible design of the human body. You created us with rhythm, with order, with intelligence woven into every system. When that system feels lost, when our bodies feel unpredictable, when stress has taken more than we realized, help us remember that you are not the author of chaos. You are the author of restoration. Give us wisdom to slow down, discernment to stop chasing intensity, humility to recognize when we need structure, patience to rebuild what has drifted. Calm the nervous systems of those listening. Bring peace where there has been pressure. Bring stability where there has been fluctuation. And bring clarity where there has been confusion. Teach us to steward our bodies well, to honor the design you placed within us, to rebuild and discipline with discipline and trust. And remind us that healing is often not dramatic. It is faithful, it is steady, it is rhythmic. We ask for your guidance in that process. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, everyone, that is a wrap for episode 88. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And if something resonated in this episode, be sure to share the link with you. Watch it again later, or share the link with anybody who might benefit from what we talked about here. I've got the special running in the bottom tagline there. Promo code ready, not $11.99, it's $1.99. Okay, the proper code is on the top of my website when you get there. That is just humiliating here. Good grief. That's how it streamed last week too. How about that? Or the last couple weeks. All right, I fixed it. Ready, $1.99. All right. And I hope to see you on the schedule. I do have openings next week, but these openings, they go fast for new clients. So if you're sitting on the fence, I'm going to, just be honest with you. There's never a good time to start a program. There never is a good time. It's like they tell you when you believe you're planning. Let's plan to have kids. Well, there's never a good time to start. Okay, and that's the same with the healing journey. Don't wait for, oh, I'm gonna, I'm going on vacation in 3 weeks and I'll be gone for a week. Don't wait for that. Don't wait until you get back. Start before you go. Okay, start today, and let's get after it. Let's get things started. You're going to appreciate it. You might actually have a better vacation. So, Doc Jeff here signing off. Thanks for listening, everybody. Love you guys.